Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few defense DST units I have as sleepers this week. The first one, the New England Patriots. So the Patriots is 1 week use only. Maybe in deeper leagues, they'll have some fantasy value. Traveling to London versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, where it's like their second home out there. And this Patriot defense, I know last week they got the doors blown off, giving up 41 points in that one versus the Texans, 2 sacks and interception. But the Jaguars offense, all season long, it's been a problem for the most part, giving up the 14th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. And I think New England, at least now they know they got a quarterback that can move the football down the field. And it can make this defense a little bit more confident that they don't have to have pressure on every drive, tons of stops a game, where that's tough to do. So I think this defense turns it around this week after last week. A juggernaut of an offense came in with the Houston Texans. And I think they could get pressure on Trevor Lawrence and create a few turnovers. And let's be honest, Trevor Lawrence, it's been another down year for him. And I think this Patriot defense could frustrate him in this ball game. And they were out there in 92% of fantasy leagues. Next DSTs, the Washington Commanders. So the Commanders, they were 1 week use only sleeper option, I believe. A good matchup versus the Panthers that give up the 12th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. And the Commanders come back home now after it was a shootout type of ball game at the Baltimore Ravens, and they lost in that one. But this Commander defense, their best game of the year was Week 5 versus Cleveland, which is a similar type of offense to Carolina. They gave 13 points in that one, 7 sacks and a fumble recovery. So Andy Dalton, we know, is a gunslinger. We know he's possibly good for a couple turnovers. And if you get a hand on Dalton, he's going down because he's not a mobile quarterback. And right now, he's obviously up there in the latter part of his career where he lost some mobility as well. So I think this Washington Commander team coming back home, coming off a tough loss, even though they're a favorite in this ball game pretty easily versus the Panthers, who are one of the worst teams in the league, go out there and could be a surprising sleeper option, available in 90% of fantasy leagues. And the final defense DST unit I have as a sleeper is the Miami Dolphins. So this Miami Dolphin DST is out there in 70% of fantasy leagues. This week, not the greatest of matchups at the Indianapolis Colts, but with Anthony Richardson returning to the lineup, we know Richardson, he's turned the football over, and we know he's taken some big hits and big sacks as well so far this season. So Miami, their last outing was at New England, and I thought they played a good game, even though that was a Jacoby Brissett-led offense, even though these offenses are a little bit similar between that New England Patriot offense with Brissett and Anthony Richardson, where it's a lot of running the football and trying to win the time of possession and limited throwing the football. So Miami, if they could play that same type of ball game like they did in Week 5 in New England, 10 points allowed, 2 sacks, I think they could be a decent sleeper option. So that's a few defense DST units I have as sleepers for Week 7 of the fantasy football season.